Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yo, go, go, go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't want to waste.
Hello everyone. In this video we're gonna talk about inclination and angulation because these two topics are surrounded by common beliefs and misunderstandings. So let's clean up this picture a bit. We can say it's also a mistake to include these two things together in one video. This may suggest that they have a closer relationship, but they don't. I've put these two side by side on the table because many people have already connected them. Alpine skiing has more than 100 years of beautiful history, but not everything can be applied today. We must analyze and understand the 50-year-old techniques and decide whether we use them or only respect them as part of our history. So let's analyze and understand the inclination and the angulation now. It's worth this 10 minutes because when we misuse some words, we may strive for the bad form of movement. But before we dive deeper, look at this guy. He is a quiet good skier and has won some World Cup races. But I'm sure if the instructor doesn't know his name in a ski lesson, a similar skiing will be corrected to make a C-shaped posture. For most skiers, angulation, moving with the upper body over the outside ski or leaning outside, is like the trademark of skiing. In this sense, skiing without angulation is called inclination and is considered a mistake. So where is the point? What exactly do angulation and inclination mean? What are the functions of these two? The inclination is a relation between the base of support and the center of the body mass that ensures stability in certain situations when external forces in addition to gravity affect the body. By the way, this is a main factor in creating a turn. So inclination belongs to a turn as a component. There is no turn without inclination. Angulation is a posture, a movement. As its name suggests, an angular position is made in the body. In the strict sense, every position when the body is not straight is an angulation. In skiing, it looks like the legs and the upper body are not in the same plane. It is not an essential component of the turn. A turn is possible without angulation. Many skiers try to use angulation to make a turn, but it's better to know that angulation is not for making, but for modifying a turn. As we can see in high jump, while the jumper arches their back, the center of mass stays below the bar, but the body can move above it. Building the arch posture is similar to angulation and doesn't directly affect the center of mass. This is because the center of the body mass is not the same as the center area of the body. The center of the body mass can be outside the body in certain situations. The trajectory of center of mass is determined earlier by the jump, and changing the posture in the air won't change the path of the center of the mass. In skiing, it is a bit different, because the angulation can slightly affect the radius due to the side cut of the ski. But this effect is only a minor and temporary modification. And now let's see the details one by one. So, inclination is a must-have component of the turn, not only in skiing but also in roller skating, biking, motorbiking, running and so on. In a simple everyday way, inclination can also be said as leaning in. We can observe on a motorbike, if the biker doesn't dare to produce the necessary inclination in a hairpin corner, they cannot make the turn. A certain radius-speed combination requires a specific inclination. Too big inclination may pose a risk of falling in or slipping out. Too little inclination can lengthen the radius, or in the worst case can cause a fall like a high-sider. The skier or biker, skater, runner must find the ideal inclination to the desired turn. Of course, there is a tolerance range depending on the situation. This process is a guess based on the experiences. In skiing, we may rarely experience a fall due to too much inclination because a bigger inclination creates shorter radius, and the shorter radius creates bigger forces that can support the body. We can feel that the ski comes under the body. Many falls look like failures due to too big inclination, but better observed we can see that slipping out is not the same as falling in. The real reason for this falls is the loss of grip caused by other failures such as postural mistakes, bad timing, contact issues with the ground and so on. A more common mistake is the insufficient inclination to the desired cornering radius. But there is no sine road in skiing, so if we are lucky we will only experience a longer turn, maybe unnoticed. In a worst case, the skier will hit another skier, or the snow can block the outside edge of the ski and the skier will fall over the skis. The inclination cannot be interpreted as a static state, as seen in the picture. It's a permanent dynamic interaction with the environment, so the timing is as important as the amount or angle. The amount of inclination is never valid at the given moment. It is only adequate for a later radius. The inclination anticipates the future radius or trajectory. Timing is a key element. Without time, we cannot understand it. That's why analyzing the inclination in a photo can be misleading. We don't know what happened in the earlier frames or what the skier's intentions are in the next seconds. Skiing is not a series of picture frames. Inclination is more of an intention that is physically defined by the turn and the trajectory. And usually we don't need to do it with some special movement. Mostly we tend to make mistakes by being afraid and blocking what physics is supposed to do. The inclination would be fine when we let physics do the job. So when the angulation is not an inclination variant, what is it? Angulation can prepare the posture for subsequent actions, or changes the ground contact in a particular way. In skiing, the edge angle, fore aft load, ski rotation, or for example in the GS skiing, helps to avoid the gate. For example, a skier may use angulation to create a temporarily bigger edge angle than the inclination angle. But for motorbikers, the grip is limited and they may need less equipment angle on the tarmac than the inclination that belongs to the radius. In this case, the biker can use negative or opposite angulation as a skier. The angle of the body with the ground is only equal to the angle of the inclination when there is no angulation. In the presence of angulation, the angle that we see in a picture is not the angle of the inclination. It can be more or less. Angulation as a movement can be made in many ways, but in skiing mainly two main versions are used to form it. In the hip joint, between the thigh bone, the femur, and the pelvis. In this case, the pelvis and the torso, including the lumbar spine, the core, build a stable, intact structure. And the mobile part is the hip socket. This is the more functional and healthy way to make an angulation. Or with the lateral bend of the lumbar spine. In this case, the pelvis and the femur are more fixed to each other, and the mobile center is higher in the body, the lumbar area. It does mean that the torso and the core cannot be really stable. This is an unstable and unhealthy posture that can cause back strain. On the surface, these two may look similar and the ski suite hides many details. That's why most skiers are unaware of proper and improper versions of angulation. It's often seen that skiers try to move their upper body toward the outside ski or downhill, doesn't matter how. But no matter how many drills we do, only understanding can help us distinguish between better or worse forms. In fact, it's better to ski without any angulation than with a wrong angulation. It could be an illusion to describe in a few minutes in a video how a proper angulation can be made. This is because a proper angulation is built with the hip joints. Two hip joints. Hips are bow and socket joints that enable the legs to move in many directions and have a wide range of freedom. The outside femur is nearly extended in the hip socket, while the inner femur is more flexed. The extended outside femur is abducted, but the inside femur is slightly abducted or neutral depending on the degree of hip flexion. A deeper position also requires more femur rotation. Both must be stabilized with some rotation, but with a different rotation. All these movements affect the posture, forward balance, edge grip, and ski rotation. A minor change in the hip socket will majorly affect the ski or the posture. There are also some limitations we have to consider if we want to use angulation in skiing. For example, as I mentioned earlier, the outside leg is abducted. If someone wants to use a pronounced angulation with a big edge angle, they need a massive hip joint mobility. More extensive mobility than the majority of everyday people have. Otherwise, they must bend the spine and lose the core. There is no other way. So when somebody has a limited range of motion in the hip socket, they cannot ski with a big edge angle and show an expected skier image with a nice angulation in a healthy way. It's not possible for those people. They can practice on the ski slope as much as they want, but there is an objective limitation. For them, the solution is either to work out their mobility in the gym first, or accept that they are anatomically unable to ski in a deep angulated position. We can describe the base principles, which are: angulation should be in the hip socket between the legs and the pelvis, but not in the lumbar spine between the pelvis and the upper part of the torso. It means don't try to lean with the chest and the shoulders. Depending on the circumstances, it's not necessary to make a turn, but it can be a useful postural solution. Similar to inclination, it's not a static state but a process, so timing is crucial. We must consider the previous and the subsequent turn progress to analyze an angulation. For example, we may see preparatory angulation at the turn's end to anticipate the next turn's inclination. In summary, don't mix inclination and angulation. These are different things with different functions. One is a necessary part of the turn, and the other is an optional postural movement that may change the form of the body or the body equipment system, and can be used when needed. There is no turn without inclination, but there are turns without angulation. There are turn phases when we can see special angulation without inclination, for example during the transition. On the other hand, it is possible to see a perfect stable apex of the turn without any angulation. The most important point is to use them functionally, always with a proper and healthy movement quality, not just because this is how a skier looks like. Thank you for joining us here. If you enjoy this content, please show your support by giving a thumbs up or a super thanks. To ensure you don't miss any future videos, please subscribe and turn on the notifications. If you have any questions or disagree with any part of the content, feel free to leave a comment to start a conversation. See you soon.